So, Tayoscha Mithunikaranam Buddhau Mitat Sambandhatapadanam. This is what we have to say. Atma has no Vedichara. Anatma has Vedichara. Atma has no, it doesn't change. Anatma changes. Not only it changes, it has a parinama, it also has a laya. And anything that has a laya can be disproved. Is false. In fact, that is the clinching argument. Anything that can laya is the... changing form is nothing. It doesn't make it false. It will remain, debated. Like a small plant changes to become a tree, and the tree again changes and then becomes old and then goes back to dust. This kind of cycle, it doesn't clinch its falsity. Change doesn't clinch its falsity. Change can give you an idea. Change can tell you that it is unreliable, because it will change. Change can give me the observation of the change on the part of the object. It can tell me that it is unreliable. I can't rely upon a changing thing, because supposing a plant is useful for me, but supposing it becomes a tree, it is no longer useful in that manner. The house as a new is useful for me, and as old it is not useful for me. Similarly, anything, it changes means it ages. Once it ages, it is not useful for me. The body as young is useful for me, and the body as old is not useful for me. In this manner, observing change can help us understand its unreliability. It is unreliable. I can't rely on it. It will age and grow old. In fact, everything in this world, even relationships change, therefore unreliable. Meaning, what is useful now need not be useful later. That's unreliable. I am half asleep and I am half talking. Therefore, just if I miss any point, you can remind me, Swamiji, bhul gaya. Because we have a lot of noise where I live. Rasko pura. Very, very disturbing there. The slum has come up. So change, relationships are also unreliable. What is unreliable? What is useful for me now it need not be useful later, but in the same manner. Relationships will change, therefore not reliable. People change. Even they are useful as young, they are useful, as old, they are not useful. This manner. Change and aging makes aging and changing is one and the same. So things age, things change. And this aging quality of the things and the changing quality of the things, I think, cannot clinch their falsity. Can only definitely clinch their unreliability. Can clinch. You don't require further debate. I believe in that clinching. You don't require further debate about it. It's just clinch. clinches. But what clinches their great falsity is, they have laya. Man observes change more than laya. That is where he misses the truth. He misses the truth because he sees the change, but he doesn't see the laya. He only thinks that the senses resolve, mind resolves. My mind has a laya, but the universe remains. Okay, son, even going by what you think, the universe may continue. But your mind resolves, that means your mind is false. He doesn't observe what resolves. He says it is a state of sleep, but he doesn't really understand what it really means. It is a resolution of the mind. So even if, going by your own view, even if we think that it is not the resolution of the world, it is only resolution of the mind, even then it clinches the falsity of the mind. If it is considered merely the resolution of the senses, it clinches the falsity of the senses. If it means the resolution of the mind only, not the world, it still clinches the falsity of the mind. And when the mind is false, your samsara is false. At least you can make a beginning there. That is why I say, we miss the truth because we see the change. Philosophers observe the change and conclude what doesn't change is the truth. And then all that they observe has changed. What they observe to change is within this waking state. And they want to find out what doesn't change within the waking state. It doesn't work. Therefore, the search for the changeless will continue forever. Why? Because all that you come across is what? Changes. You can never come across something that doesn't change. Therefore, philosophers must change the realm of their observation. Instead of merely observing that the objects change, they must observe that they have resolution. That's a great thing. Resolution. And then you have to redefine what is truth, what doesn't change plus what doesn't resolve is the truth. What changes what change are the objects? The objects change, the body changes, the mind changes. Because everything is changing, the philosophers ask a question, is there something that doesn't change? And if there is something that doesn't change, then that should be the truth. But where do they look for the changeless? It is the same. Where do they look for? Even if they want to look for the changeless elsewhere, what is that elsewhere? Where is that elsewhere? I say they cannot come across something called elsewhere. They have no knowledge of the elsewhere. The knowledge of the elsewhere comes to them only when they give less importance to the changing quality of things and give more importance to the resolving quality of things. Things resolve. Then they will understand That sleep is the state where everything resolves. Things change in the waking state, resolve in sleep. Things change in the waking state, resolve in sleep. Now, you ask yourself a question. Is sleep a state inside the waking? Is sleep a state within the waking? No. Sleep is not a state within the waking. Sleep is freedom from the waking. So it is a state of resolution of the waking. If it is a state of resolution of the waking, and if the philosophers observe the resolution, then they will definitely get at least some insight, my God. Is there something that doesn't resolve? Mind resolves, the senses resolve. And what doesn't resolve should be the truth. What doesn't resolve should be the truth. And in the process of finding out, search for, when they make a search for finding out what is it that doesn't resolve at all, in the process of the search for the unresolving, they may get an insight into the very experiencer of the sleep, the observer of the sleep. At least they can get an insight into, they start really in the long inquiry. Probably they are also the same truth, you see. The same truth can strike them, perhaps to an extent. It may suddenly strike them, if the mind resolves, is it our belief or is it our knowledge? If it is our knowledge, that means the resolution of the mind also is a matter for our observation. Then they can really come to know, my God, the one who observes not only doesn't change, he also doesn't resolve. So they can look for the truth within themselves. They will not search for the truth in the waking state. A lot of changes can take place. But who is going to tell them that sleep is not a state in the waking? We think sleep is a kind of a mental peaceful state within the waking. Sleep is a peaceful state within the waking. In fact, the Vedanta says sleep is not a state within the waking, but actually the waking is a state within the sleep. The waking begins where it was not. But generally, the philosophers don't think about sleep as it's a state of resolution of the waking. They think that sleep is a state within the waking state. They don't mind even saying a dream is a state within the mind. It's a mental state. Dream is a mental state. Dream is a state of the mind, the same waking mind. A deep sleep state also is a peaceful state of mind. It's a state of the mind. It's a state of the mind. They need to be, it is only Vedanta which comes and says very beautifully, waking is not a state of your mind, it is a state of your being with a thought. Dream is a state of your being with the thought. Deep sleep state is a state of your being without a thought. Life is looked upon by Vedanta as a state of one's being. Whereas the Western philosophers always look at life as a state of the mind. Waking is a state of the mind, dream is a state of the mind, sleep is a state of the mind, happiness is a state of the mind, unhappiness is a state of the mind, good is a state of the mind, bad is a state of the mind. That is why when you go to a club, then they will say happiness. They always, every Mataji says, happiness. What is happiness? The state of your mind. They think they have said the last word on happiness. My God, the last final verdict on happiness. Every Mata, what is happiness? It is the state of your mind. She passes the most enlightened, elite, educated Mataji. Hey Ramachandra, that is why you don't know. You can come to feel the maximum artificiality we can come across in modern times. I'm telling you. Some 30, 40, 50 years ago, there was a lot of genuineness. A lot of artificiality. Very, very artificial. Say, as long as man will always, man always thinks of life as a state of thought. It's not a state of thought. It is the presence of one's being. It is a state of one's being. It is one's being with a thought, one's being with a thought, one's being without a thought. It is only when Vedanta points out that the three states are not three states of the mind. You see, the mind changes. How can there be a state of the mind? Which mind has the waking look? Which mind has the dream look? If you say the same mind, which mind? Which same mind? It has to be the same. The mind itself doesn't remain the same. Therefore, how can you say the same mind has three states? If the same mind has three states, must have three states, it must be first same. And as remaining the same, it must have three looks. If the same mind has a three state, the mind must be the same with three looks. Does the mind stay same? No. The sameness of the mind is not there. Changes. In the dream, there are no waking memories. You know, that waking quality of the mind is not there. In the waking state, the dreaming quality of the mind is not there. In the deep sleep state, the mind itself is not there. Therefore, but we can say, three states. It is the same being that has three states. That is why, for your just information, in order to make you feel convinced about what I am talking, I am giving you two words. That is, one is avastha, the other is avasthavan. The Shruti always says, there are three states and the one who has three states is the truth. The one who has three states is none other than Atma. Why it has three states? Remaining the same, it looks to be the Veka. Remaining non-dual looks the dreamer. Remaining non-dual looks sleeper. Then I can say it is the same being that has three states because it remains the same. It remains the same. Now, can you say that the same mind has three states? You can't say the same mind has three states. Because if the same mind has to have three states, then the mind must be changeless. Remaining changeless, it must have three appearances. Baba, it must look three, remaining the same. Does the mind look three, remaining the same? And here I can make you strike depth in thinking. The three looks must be objectifiable. The changeless should not be objectifiable. Mind in its entirety is objectifiable. What is that changeless nature of the mind? That is unobjectifiable. Therefore, the subject, its swarupa is unobjectifiable. Its unchanging non-dual nature is unobjectifiable. Whereas three looks are objectifiable. My waking identity as an individual is objectifiable. A dream identity is objectifiable. And even the absence of the waking and the dream is objectifiable. Yes, absence. Absence of the waking state is a thought alongside the presence of it. The thought of presence. The thought of absence is never parallel to the thought of presence. The thought of absence is a part of, is within the realm of thought of presence. You can't think of the absence without the memory of the presence. Yes. A very beautiful unfoldment Bhagavan has made in Brahma Sutras. Therefore, waking is objective, waking identity is objectified, dream identity is objectified, and even the absence of the waking and the dream is objectified. Life is objectified, even death is objectified. They are not objectified at two times. The absence of life is thought alongside the thought of its presence. Are you able to follow? Suppose it's like, I can think of sleep only alongside the waking. If there is no waking, there is no waking as well as sleep. Yes. If we can capture this, it's a great breakthrough. There is no death when there is no life. There is no life. When there is no life, there is no... So death is thought of alongside life. Sleep is thought of alongside waking. Therefore, the thought of life and the thought of death, please tell me, are they parallel? The thought of life and thought of death are not parallel. The thought of waking and the thought of sleep are not parallel. Parallel means, each one is independent of the other. Aisa nahi hai. Like raga, dvesha, they are opposites. I can have raga without dvesha. I can have dvesha without raga. In that way, even though they are two opposites, they are opposites, one without the other can't exist, all right. We can fundamentally, they stand related, they stand opposed to each other. But I can have like without dislike and dislike without like. I want you to know. But you can't have the thought of life without the thought of death. Both are together. They are implicit. The thought of death is implicit in the thought of life. The thought of sleep is implicit in the thought of the waking. Therefore, if that is true, just for a little while try if the thought of even dream as dream, dream as a dream, dream as a dream is within the waking state. The dream is discovered as a dream inside the waking state. The waking state is waking state within the waking state. Even the thought of deep sleep as absence of the waking and the dream is felt within the waking state. And therefore, the waking state along with the dream and sleep as one block is rooted in the non-dual. The three states are kalpita in the non-dual state, the subject, which is not a state. And therefore, we don't say life is a state of mind, life is a state of the being. I don't want to say even it is a state of the being, it is a presence of your being, sir. Once I use the word state, then it has a problem that it is subject to change. A state has to change. Presence doesn't change. Presence is not a state. All states are kalpita within the presence. Presence is our presence. Thus, change can't clinch its falsity, but laya can clinch it. Now you can think about that with independent of Vedanta, do you think that any scientist, any philosopher can arrive at this truth? I don't think so. Without Shabda Pramana. Why? Because as a jiva, he will always look at everything in terms of thought. Even Vedantis imagine one thing, that even sleep is a thought, even when you are asleep, thought is there in the rudimentary form. That is all wrong. Those who have exposure to Shabda Pramanam, even they feel that there is thought in the deep sleep. There is no thought. Therefore, no, independent of Shabda Pramanam. Sometimes, we had a lot of debate long ago. In Bombay we had some kind of very long, big debate. Lot of people, they said, why not? If the sages can find the truth, the scientists also can find out. We can also find out the truth, independent of Shabda Pramana. I say the sages did not find out. The sages also received it from their gurus. But you say that the Veda manifested. That is manifested, not that they figured out. In the first sages, we say it manifested. Even when we say that the Vedanta, Veda manifested in the minds of the sages, we say it only to show that it's not figured out through logic. And there also it doesn't mean really the Tatparyam is only just because it manifests, it doesn't become valid unless it conforms to the truth. Therefore, no philosopher independent of Shabda Pramanam can get some experience, some insight, all right, thoda bahut. But they can't figure out that the subject is the truth of the three states. And deep sleep state, from its own point of view, is the truth. Deep sleep state, viewed from the waking point of view, viewed from the waking state, it is viewed as a state of absence of the waking and the dream. But otherwise the presence of one's own self. Thus, let us move. Tayosh, thus we have seen up to this. Anrutasjana iti avasiyate tayoshcha janmuthini mithini karanam buddhau mitaha sambandhata padanam tadetan mithyajnanam adhyasa shabda vyapadeshyam. Up to that we have seen. Little more before?
In the previous sentence.
Okay. So, tayoshcha yan mithunikaranam. Mithunikaranam is different from sanyoga. It's amazing how mithunikaranam is like, supposing when you get involved with an object, you are enjoying an object. You are fixated with an object. That fixation with an object, enjoying an object, is called maithuna. Maithuna means enjoying. Ahara, nidra and maithunam are common to all the living beings. Ahara, food, and nidra, sleep, and maithunam, enjoy, sense enjoyment. This fixation with an object is called maithunam. It's called mitha, mithunam or mitha. Two things getting involved with each other is called mitha. It doesn't mean here Atma and the body are two realities involved with each other. Mitha is used here not to... Mitha does not convey there are two things. Mitha conveys with no idea of distinction between the two. There is mithunikaranam between the Atma and the body. That mithunikaranam between the Atma and the body conveys not there are two things, but there is no insight, there is no idea for the jiva that there is a distinction. There is a distinction. Like, supposing when you put water in the milk, even though they just exist inseparable from each other, but you have an idea. That is, they are separable, there is a distinction between milk and water. Therefore, it is not really mithunikaranam. It is because there is an idea, there is a distinction. But when you stand as the body, you have no idea of the distinction between the self and the body. That absence of an idea of distinction is conveyed by the word mithunikaranam. I am trying to convey something very subtle. Because the mithunikaranam also conveys that there are two things. But the mithunikaranam doesn't convey that there are two things. It only conveys that the distinction between the truth and the false, the distinction between the subject and the form. That form is not another truth, happens to be Amritam, but the distinction between the subject and the form, no clue to the distinction. That absence of any clue to the distinction between the subject and the body, the identification is so much that no clue is left to its distinction. That is called mithunikaranam. Tayoshjayan mithunikaranam buddhau. And where does the mithunikaranam take place? In the buddhi, in the intellect, in the mind. What does it mean in the mind? If there has to be If there has to be Mithuneekaranam in the intellect, then even before the Mithuneekaranam there has to be intellect. Naturally. If the Mithuneekaranam has to take place in the mind, then even before the Mithuneekaranam takes place, there has to be the mind. But Aisatu Haini, therefore, this Mithuneekaranam doesn't take place in the mind, it takes place as thought, in the form of pratyaya. Rajatamiti pratyeti nadu tatra rajatamasti, it is said. One only sees that there is rajatam, silver in the shell. Rajatamiti pratyeti nadu tatra rajatamasti, not that there is any rajatam, not that there is any silver. Rajatamiti pratyeti. That means pratyaya rupa, it is only a thought. Therefore, when we say Mithuneekaranam takes place in the mind, or Mithuneekaranam takes place in the intellect, or Mithuneekaranam takes place in the thought, it should be taken to mean only that it takes place as a thought. This is another huge breakthrough in Vedanta, otherwise the students will be battling. The serious students would be battling. It takes place in the mind. That means even before it takes place, there is a mind. And then supposing if a student is brilliant, try to hear what I am telling. If the student is brilliant, he will still be confused. How? If adhyasa is anadi, and anadi adhyasa takes place in the mind, then the mind also should be anadi. Even though they both are anadi, kalakrama may not be there, pratipatti krama has to be there. That means, presupposing anadi mind, there has to be anadi adhyasa. Like presupposing the anadi agrahanam, there has to be anadi anyatha agrahanam. Both are anadi. So between agrahanam and anyatha agrahanam, there is no kalakrama, but there is pratipatti krama. Is it not? Supposing you say that the adhyasa takes place in the mind, and then supposing somebody asks a question, how can the adhyasa being anadi can take place in the mind? You say, anadi adhyasa takes place in the anadi mind. Then between the mind and adhyasa there will be no kalakrama, but there would still be pratipatti krama. But can we accept? In fact, and another beautiful point I am going to tell you. If there is pratipatti krama between the mind and adhyasa, mind becomes more fundamental than adhyasa. Then you can't really, by correcting adhyasa, you won't destroy the mind, you won't resolve, you won't falsify the mind. By destroying the mind, by falsifying the mind. But in order to falsify the mind, you have to prove that it is adhyasa. Therefore, mind is not the locus of adhyasa. Mind is not the locus, adhikaranam for adhyasa. Mind here should mean adhyasa takes place in the form of thought. In contrast to the buddha mitaha sambandhata padram. Therefore, if you understand this, that mind itself, the adhyasa is in the form of thinking, then you have one great benefit here. You cannot solve any mental problem without solving adhyasa. nobody can solve the mental problem without solving. Yeah. You can't solve raga dveshas. You can control them but not solve them. You can control desire but not solve it. You can control depression but not solve it. Solve means solve forever. That kind of solving the mental problems forever is not possible without solving adhyasa. This also gives me an idea why many people, when I was studying, there are a lot of Americans. A lot of Americans were there in that place. Now I can understand, I can look back. Even at that time I was able to understand, but now, because as you go on living, you get a lot of things. We're all students of thought. Now I can understand. You see, you have small mental problems, okay? You have some likes and dislikes. I mean, in the light of Vedanta, what are all those things? You're talking about the topic, Get occupied with the topic. What if you have a few likes and dislikes? Who cares? They'll all get bulldozed in your reflection. I don't think they matter much. In fact, some of those trashes that take place in the mind, I don't think they matter much. I was able to understand at that time. Now also I understand, but then those Americans, class is over, immediately after the class they want to talk to Swamiji, I have a problem, I want to talk to you. What a problem? I have a problem. What is that problem that you have? All the time. They are all, I tell you, the Westerners, for them mind is something. It's a terror. All the time mental problem. That means they would like to solve the mental problems and then solve the ignorance. You get occupied with the topic, your mind will be all right. You leave the topic, the mind is a devil's workshop. There is a saying, an empty mind is a devil. I would like to make a small change there. Even an occupied mind is a devil's workshop. It is only when you are occupied with the truth, it's a paradise. Without getting occupied with the truth, it is a devil's workshop. I think, one is an empty devil's workshop, the other is a active devil's workshop. A businessman's mind is an active devil's workshop. Or anybody, a politician's mind is an active devil's workshop. You have to be occupied with the truth. In that matter, I cannot make any compromise in that. Okay, there's a lot of construction around my place. And a lot of slum has come about. The whole night there are brawls. I don't know what do. They should sleep so that they can work by day. The whole night, neither they sleep nor do we allow anybody else around to go to sleep. And I said, hey Bhagavan, my class kaise loon? Chalo, koi baat nahi, thoda. Mithuni bhava. After that, mithya jnana. Now I am going to make one more point. Tayoshchayan mithuni karanam buddhau midaha sambandhadapadanam tadetan mithya jnanam adhyasu shabda vyapadeshyam. The word adhyasa and the word mithya jnanam are synonyms. And now we are going to begin great inquiry. Atascha siddham, therefore it is evident. Mithya jnana nimittaha loka vyavahara iti. Therefore the entire samsara is due to mithya jnanam, not mithya prapancha. There is no mithya thing, there can only be mithya. What looks like a real thing is a false knowledge. When we say sarpa, what looks like a real sarpa is not determined as a false snake. What looks like a real snake is determined as false knowledge about the road. What looks like real water is not determined as false water. What looks like real water is determined as false knowledge about the fact. Therefore, what looks like the real universe is not determined as a false universe. It is determined as false perception about it. Mithya is not an attribute of, is not a description of a thing. Mithya is a description of the quality of knowledge. There can be mithya jnanam. There cannot be a mithya thing. This is the bone of contention, Ji. Can there be a false thing? Is the point. There cannot be a false thing. There can be false knowledge. Looking like a real thing plus the knowledge of it. One false knowledge masquerades as a real thing and the knowledge of it. That is why I say there is a snake and I have knowledge of it. And man continues to swear, indeed it is a snake. Indeed it is a snake. He swears. Do you know why? Because I see it's my knowledge. Because the false knowledge looks like a real thing. A false knowledge looks like a real thing. And the real knowledge of it gets divided, is it not? One mithya jnanam gets divided into thing and the knowledge of it. Baba. I am trying to explain to you very slowly. Please understand. If you can capture this, how this, the secret of division is this. One false knowledge, until it is corrected, looks like thing and the knowledge. Thing and the knower of it. Thing and the means of knowledge of it. Thing and the knowledge of it. Thing and the knower of it. तो जाता है. Thing and the knowledge. Therefore, what is samsara? Is it mithya thing or mithya jnanam? Mithya jnanam. Can you correct mithya thing? No. You can only correct mithya jnanam. This is what is going to be the topic we will see later.